Hey everyone, and welcome to my first official YouTube video. My name is Christa, and I'm the owner of SophiVintage. I've been wanting to start posting my projects for so long, and I finally decided it was time to just do it. I recently opened a vintage booth at Then & Now Antique Mall, located in Jensen Beach, Florida, and that honestly gave me the push I needed to start sharing my flips, finds, and transformations here. So today, I'm showing you one of my favorite projects to this day, a free Facebook Marketplace rescue that turned into one of my proudest pieces. When I got the dresser home, I realized why it was free. This thing was in rough condition. Drawers were crooked, paint was thick and uneven, and it looked like it had lived a few different lives. Probably in a kid's room, judging by the stickers and all the random candy I found in each drawer. But I could see the potential, and it had that perfect mid-century shape that I love so much. First things first, I had to remove all the drawers and liners so I could really inspect it. I always number the drawers when taking them out so that I know they'll go back exactly where they came from. There goes that candy I was talking about. After I had everything cleared out, I gave the entire piece a good vacuum and then I scrubbed it down with Dawn Power Wash and a scrub brush. Using Dawn is one of my secret weapons for degreasing old furniture. You'd be surprised how much hidden gunk can clog your sandpaper later if you skip this step. Once I had everything clean, it was time to start fixing the structure. I started by removing the back panel and then glued and clamped any loose joints that I could find. There were several areas where the wood had cracked or even pulled completely apart, especially around the drawer supports and corner joints. You could tell that this dresser had been moved around a lot over the years, probably without much care. Since some of the old glue had dried out and basically turned to dust, I wanted to start by re-vacuuming the whole piece now that I had the back off. I wanted to clean out any old residue, dirt, or grime that could prevent the glue from adhering properly. After that, I dry fitted each section to make sure everything lined up properly. This step is so important because if you just start gluing without checking alignment, you'll end up fighting with crooked drawers later. Ask me how I know that part. Once I made sure that everything was lined up, I used wood glue on all the broken joints, then clamped everything down tightly. If you're doing this at home, you want to make sure you see a little glue squeeze out from the seams. That's how you know you've got full coverage inside the crack. I like to keep a paper towel handy or a baby wipe to wipe away any of the excess glue with a damp rag before it dries so you don't have to sand it off later. Once all of the cracks I could find were re-glued and clamped tightly, I left those to dry and finally could start moving on to sanding. I could tell that the top of this dresser was laminate, so I started by using an 80 grit sandpaper just to scuff up the slick surface so that the primer and paint would stick. The rest of the dresser was made with solid wood and veneer, so I chose to start with a 120 grit sandpaper and then move up to 220 for a smooth finish. At this point, I decided to remove the top of the dresser entirely so that my sander could reach all the edges and corners. And of course, I found some more spots that needed glue. The sanding process took hours, but it's so important. And if you've ever refinished furniture, you know what I mean. I had dust in my hair, my eyelashes, everywhere. Luckily, my full-time project manager was there to keep me company. Don't worry, he's paid entirely in cheese and belly rubs. For the detailed areas, I switched to using a rubber sanding block, great for keeping everything flat and even. Then it was on to the legs, which I was really excited about. These classic mid-century round legs are always solid wood, and I used one of my favorite tricks to strip the paint fast. I attached 80 grit sandpaper to a foam pad, locked the leg bolt into my drill, and spun it while holding the sandpaper in place. It's basically a DIY lathe moment, and it works so well. How satisfying is seeing all of this paint come off so fast. With everything sanded, cleaned, and reattached, it was finally time to bring the piece back to life. I started by wiping down the top of the dresser again, and then priming it with Bin 123 primer. I made sure to sand in between coats of primer to get a silky smooth finish. Using Behr Marquee paint in the color Varnished Ivory, I painted the top of the dresser. It's this beautiful creamy vintage white that feels warm and not stark, perfect for a 1970s piece of furniture. Once that was dry, I started prepping the drawers. But don't worry, I'll save you from another long montage of sanding and gluing, but just know there was a lot of it. Now here's where things finally started to get fun. I wanted to do a gradient effect, something that felt very mid-century with bold color, but still fresh and unique. Here I'm explaining that I decided to stain the 3 middle drawers to match the wood tones of the body and paint the outer drawers in a soft gradient of retro greens. The stain I'm using for the dresser is Saman Wood Stain in Antique Walnut. This was my first time trying it out and I absolutely loved it. It's odorless, totally safe to use inside, beginner friendly, and it goes on super evenly. Once the stain had dried, I used my Cricut to cut out an atomic star decal from removable vinyl. I placed one in the center of each of the 3 stain drawers. This will make sense in just a minute. To keep the edges crisp, I sealed the vinyl with a thin top coat before priming and painting over them. That's the secret to getting clean, sharp lines when you peel them back. Then came my favorite part, adding color. I used 3 shades of green to create a subtle ombre effect, fading from light to dark. It gives it that Jetsons meets Florida kind of vibe that I love. When I finally peeled back the stars, I was so happy to see it came out perfect. Those clean atomic shapes just really popped against the wood stain. I sealed the entire piece with a few coats of water-based satin poly, and then stood back to take it all in. The transformation was honestly better than I pictured. It went from this sad, forgotten dresser to something that feels like it could have been in a mid-century catalog. This project took forever. So many hours of sanding, gluing, and rethinking, but it was worth every second. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss future transformations. I'll be sharing more flips like this one, thrift hauls, and even some room makeovers soon. Thank you so much for watching and supporting this little creative journey of mine. See you in the next one, and until then, happy thrifting.